Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to this traditional last panel of the Bled Strategic Forum, which is, of course, the panel on the Western Balkans. I think no introductions are needed because, you know, with me are all old survivors of the enlargement process who have been with us through thick and thin in the last decades. So I would just jump into the discussion simply because we have 1 hour and 15 minutes and there is a lot of speakers. We have also 2 keynote listeners, Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Makovec. So I would just jump in with Alexandre Adam. Alexandre was an advisor to President Macron, also on enlargement. He was the one who was actually conducting the French positions on the Western Balkans and the whole enlargement process. But now he's not working there anymore, so he has more time to think, to reflect, and to also suggest ideas on how to move forward. Now, you know, in the past we have been always talking about this, long process without the end, where nobody is being serious, neither EU nor the Western Balkan countries, and so on and so on. But yesterday, we finally got a date. You know, Michel said that EU should be ready to enlarge in 2030, which means, vice versa, Western Balkan countries should do the necessary reforms until 2030 if they would like to join the European Union. On the other hand, Alexandre, we heard also Macron, President Macron yesterday, who was talking about multi-speed Europe. Now, you know, these are 2 different concepts which not necessarily go together, because we always said that EU should in parallel deepen and also enlarge. Tell me your thoughts about the date. Is this something which is realistic? Is this something that can be done? Because we had dates in the past. We remember Juncker and 2025, so now we came to 2030. But because geostrategically changes in Europe came, especially with the Russian aggression on Ukraine, is this date now the date when we are going to see some of the Western Balkan countries enter the European Union? Thank you, Alexandre.
Thank you, Peter. I was actually thinking before I left the President's office, but I try indeed to think further today. You framed the debate also on your website in a rather different way, but between should we be pessimistic or optimistic about what's ahead. And having a look back on the past years on enlargement policy, it's in a way quite easy to be pessimistic, because being pessimistic, and it's really usually relates to a blame game. On the one hand, the EU for not having kept its promise, the Western Balkans for not having carried out the reforms that were needed. And so you have on the one hand the EU self-scourging, and on the other the Western Balkans self-victimizing. And it never ends. It never ends. And so I think that the sad reality is that the Russian aggression against Ukraine brought back the enlargement on the top of the political agenda. And this is really new. This is really new. And this means that this is happening. This is actually happening, that the 27 are serious about enlargement. And so that there's a need indeed for thinking, there's a need for new thoughts maybe about the process, and therefore the dates. Because in a way, if we have to draw some lessons of why the process has not worked until now, in the end it's about incentives to reforms. And you can have 2 ways to incentivize the reforms that are actually not incompatible. In the 2. The first one is the gradual accession or the stage accession model and the date. And I want to say whatever works in a way. If a date works, let's have a date. And in this regard, President Macron in Bratislava last May, he said the question is not a question of the if. We said yes, this will happen. It's not a question of when, as soon as possible. It's a question of how we do it. And your two questions relate to actually to the when and the how. Charles Michel yesterday said when. He said 2030. Some years ago, I was actually not a big fan of the idea of an indicative date because I thought that this is disincentivizing. But I've changed my mind because I've thought about it since then. No, but I also thought about France, actually. France never had to join the EU, but it had to join the Euro. And I'm quite positive, sure, that if we hadn't had a date and a calendar to join the Euro, we would not have made it on 1st of January 1999. And because we had a very clear calendar of the reform that had to be carried out over 4 years and a half, we did it. But because we had this clear objective. Yeah, I'm in favor of 2030. I've seen the reactions that are actually, from Peter Sciarto, from the Commission snubbing the proposal by Charles Michel. I don't think that this is the way forward, to be frank. I really don't think. And I think that this shows one of the main shortcomings of the EU approach to enlargement, that is a very divided communication when it comes, for example, to the date. So let's just, if there should be one conclusion among many of today, let's just not kill the idea of a date, but trying to see what this means. And I think that there should be, that the 2030 date, there are actually two dates there. There's the 2030 goal for the EU to be reformed, to accept new members by then, but there's also the date to which candidate countries should commit before their public opinions, before the citizens, to say, yes, we will carry out the reform to be ready by 2030. Then what Emmanuel Macron...
Who is going to be ready? Everybody?
I don't know. How could I know?
I will ask them.
No, but yes, because I don't know. I'm not an expert of the legislative process in Albania. I don't know. But I'm sure that if the Commission and the Albanian government work together to have a kind of a multi-annual legislative planning and say, by that date, we can have closed X cluster, because by that date, we will have carried out the XXX reforms. Then, yes, in the end, you can be ready by 2030.
So we should also have intermediate date.
I think, yeah, because this is what we did with the Euro, intermediate dates. This was not easy for France. We were actually quite late in regard to this program in comparison to Germany. We made it because of the dates. On multi-speed Europe, what actually President Macron said, it was related to how do we make match, how do we reconcile deepening of the EU, it's the, forever question, deepening of the EU and enlargement. And so what he said is, we should be ready, for those who want, or for those who want it, it's me adding, to have greater integration in certain policies, perhaps, the perhaps is important, with multi-speed Europe. This does not mean creating second-class members. I know too well the resentment that this creates, and I know too well for France actually also the political capital that we have to engage in such discussions. So it's not about two second-class members, but I think it's about two things. It's about the fundamental question, will we be able to decide with 35 members in the same way we are deciding today with 27? So, really tricky question. I know the question, I don't know the answer today. The second question, I think, it also relates to even more fundamental issue of the finalité of the European project. Are candidate countries ready to commit to the ever closer union? And if they are not, should we force them to? For me, this is an open question that we should have, because this is a very serious issue on the way that future member states see what the project is about. So, should not see this as contradictory to what Charles Michel said yesterday. But the main message here is that there's a debate ongoing. There's a debate that was open, not yesterday, but let's say a year ago. And that in a way all ideas are welcome. But to finish, because I'm too long, whatever works.
Whatever works. Minister Fajon, we are here behind the closed doors. So you can tell us if you can. A little bit. A little bit. You had a lot of meetings also with the leaders of Western Balkan countries, together with our Prime Minister, with Charles Michel, also with other foreign ministers from EU countries and all over the world. What's your feeling? Are we serious now? I mean, is this pledge, which basically Charles Michel gave yesterday, is this something which we should consider as finalité, like Alexandre would say, as really the date when this elusive enlargement is going to happen?
Thank you. I truly consider this a very important message from the Bled Strategic Forum. This is Bled Pledge 2030. I can say it's extremely vocal, and it's not only provocative or thrown in the air without some consideration in the back. And I believe we really have a unique political momentum. And that is why this date is important, to think out of the box and have political wisdom and creativity. It, of course, the message is EU shall be prepared by 2030. It's maybe a historic message if we think it that way, in an optimistic way. Because after the war in Ukraine, and not only after the war, even in the last few years, there is a different atmosphere in the Council. There is much greater awareness of the need to enlarge to the Western Balkans. And the situation we are today, the political momentum that we are discussing about the enlargement to the Eastern neighborhood, and that certain steps might be considered, an important one already this year, and these will be political decisions. That is why I say, let us think out of the box and do everything on both sides. On the side of the EU, we can use the momentum to reform internally to be ready, and on the side of the Western Balkans, to really give us arguments and speed up, because of course the readiness will be important. But I think if we don't grab the momentum this year, because next year there are European elections, and the Commission new will take place only in October, if we don't use the momentum this year, I fear there is a lot of time again lost. And for that reason, I believe this Bled Pledge 2030 and the message of Charles Michel is a very important one. I read today the news from the Commission. Already, this is, it's a process, it's a technical process, it's a lot of, words behind. But I think if we find certain governments, certain like-minded countries around, and there are a lot of friends of the Western Balkans, to work in this direction, to have this political pressure also in the Council and maybe skeptical countries, I think by December we have a good chance to do some important progress. If that is a gradual integration, we discussed a lot with the ministers this morning from the Western Balkans, with the leaders 2 days ago, and we had a very important brainstorming how to do this gradual integration. For example, I believe we should really soon invite Western Balkan countries to be observers, to be part of the debate of the future of Europe, to watch the processes, maybe on the negotiation chapters where they do some progress, they are part of the discussions at the table with EU ministers. So this gradual integration or going to single market and to have tangible steps on the way to 2030 that the people can feel it, that it's not only technical process, now we have a political momentum because of a different geopolitical situation. That is why that requires us to think also different. And I think there is a good chance. The other is whether we are capable of realizing that. I can just say that I got very excited about the idea, and we started hard working on it, and we will work with, as I said, with partners in the region and also with the countries around that are willing to go that direction.
Thank you, Minister. My only problem is that this year only has 3 more months, I think. we will have to be very, very, very...
Peter, think out of the box.
Yeah. I'm not going to take linearly, you know, sometimes time flies differently in different regions. Minister Dačić, Ivica...
Can I just remind you, on Bosnia and Herzegovina, you might recall, people didn't believe that Bosnia and Herzegovina can get a candidate status. Maybe 2 months before, there was a lot of skepticism. But we really managed to convince, and it worked out. So why not now?
Why not now? Thank you, Minister.
I like that example, Tanja. That example is really good, like a Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Minister Dačić, Ivica, I hope the chair is a little bit better than the last time you were here. You know, I wanted to put a sofa, but we don't have enough room. Next year for sure. How does Michel's speech change, or is it going to change perception in Serbia regarding enlargement? Because you have been one of the countries who was most vocal, most skeptical in saying that enlargement is not going to happen anytime soon. I think even 2 or 3 weeks ago, Minister Vučić said that we shouldn't think about enlargement because it's not happening. We should basically target single market. Is this pledge now from Bled changing your perception in any way?
Pa ja pre svega želim da vas pozdravim sve. Nemam primjedbi na nameštaj.
First of all, I would like to say hello to everyone, and I have no objections when it comes to my chair.
Ne znam kakvi ste, nisam bio na doručku, tako da ne znam da li ste malo, da li više niste tako škrti kao ranije.
I didn't participate in the breakfast, however, and I don't know whether you're no longer so cheap as you used to be.
A to je normalno, znate, najbolje se jede kod najsiromašnijih ljudi.
But it's a normal thing. You always eat the best with the poorest people.
Moje pitanje za Lajčaka glasi, da li... Moram da te pitam.
My question for Mr. Lajčák is, you are not a moderator.
It's okay.
Pa ja imam pravo, ja sam ovdje najstariji.
But I have the right, I'm the oldest here.
Da li Michel danas misli ono što je rekao juče?
Does Michel still think today what he said yesterday?
Odnosno, da li je on rekao kao on ili je rekao u ime Evropske unije?
That is, did he say it on his own behalf or on behalf of the European Union?
Da li sve države članice stoje iza toga?
Do all state members stand behind him?
Pričam potpuno otvoreno. Bio bih radostan da je to tačno.
Truth be told, and I'm saying this in an open way, I would be happy if this was true.
Ali isto tako moram da kažem da čini mi se da već sigurno 10 godina i 15 svi mi učestvujemo na jednom čuvenom, na svakoj konferenciji. Postoji jedna čuvena tema, a to je evropske integracije Zapadnog Balkana.
But truth be told, in the past 10 or 15 years, we have all been participating in different conferences where we always have a famous panel devoted to the EU integration of the Western Balkans.
Da ne bismo smetali drugima, obično to smo samo mi sa Zapadnog Balkana.
And not to bother the rest of them, because usually only the ones from the Western Balkans are the ones who participate.
Da se zadovolji forma.
Simply to satisfy the form.
Pa i ovo je posljednji panel danas i juče.
And this is the last panel today and yesterday, I mean, of the forum itself.
Ko zna koji po redu na kojem učestvujemo.
And who knows which panel this is in which we are participating. There have been numerous.
I sada će uskoro da uslede međusobni napadi nas sa Zapadnog Balkana.
And soon the mutual attacks of us from the Western Balkans will follow.
reći ćemo najgore jedno o drugima.
We will say all the worst, one against each other, about each other.
Tako da ovi iz Europske unije će da zaključe da nam i nije ni mesto u Europskoj uniji.
So people from the European Union will come to a conclusion that it is not our place to be part of the European Union.
Zaista mislim da više nema smisla organizovati ovakve skupove.
And I truly think that there's really no point in organizing these kinds of gatherings.
Šta, vi iz Brisela ne znate da mi hoćemo u Europsku uniju?
What you people in the Brussels don't know that we want to become a part of the European Union.
Bio bih radostan da ste ovoliko pažnje posvetili 90. godine. Pre rata, jer možda ne bi ni bilo rata.
And I would be thrilled had you devoted this much attention in 1990, before the war, because then perhaps we wouldn't have the war.
I da ste ponudili kao alternativu evropske integracije.
And that you had offered as an alternative European integration.
Zašto tada nismo organizovali ovakve skupove i međunarodne konferencije?
Why hadn't we organized these kinds of gatherings and international conferences at that time?
Pa i sada se priča posle rata u Ukrajini.
And even now we're discussing this after the war in Ukraine.
Nama ne treba ništa posle rata, treba nam nešto pre rata.
We don't need anything after the war. We needed something before the war.
Evropska ideja je mogla da bude supstitut, zamena za jugoslovensku ideju.
And European idea could have been a substitute for Yugoslav idea.
Sad, nismo se time bavili. Nismo se bavili evropskim integracijama.
But this wasn't something we had dealt with. We had not been dealing with European integration.
Zašto ne? Why not?
And why not?
Because you thought that the European Union is not serious.
Pa ne, Evropska unija to alternativu nije davala 90. godina na početku.
Well, European Union had not offered this kind of alternative in the 90s, in the beginning.
O čemu smo mi raspravljali 90. godina? Kako će ko da se osamostali i da stvori svoje države?
In the 90s, we only discussed how will certain republics become independent states and create their own states.
Čekaj, vi ste, ne znam, neki su stariji možda od mene, ali retki izuzeci. Ja se sećam da je Titova komunistička Jugoslavija bila kandidat za pridruženog člana Evropske unije.
I believe I'm the oldest here. Some are perhaps older than I am, but I remember that Tito's communist Yugoslavia was a candidate for a joint member of the EU.
Zašto?
And why?
Zašto? Zato što smo bili drugačiji od istočne Evrope.
Because we were different than the Eastern Europe.
Ivica, slowly.
Hoću da kažem da ne verujem da će se obistiniti ovo, ne zbog toga, jednostavno ne verujem zato što ne postoji politička odluka da to tako treba.
Truth be told, I don't believe these prognoses will come true because I don't think there is a political decision that this is something that should happen.
Ne postoji zato što postoje promenljivi uslovi.
Because there are changeable conditions.
Koji su kriterijumi?
What are the criteria?
Uradite jedno, oni vam postave drugo.
You regulate one thing and then they give you next criteria.
Ne poštuju se međunarodne, ne poštuju se potpisani sporazum.
Signed agreements are not being respected.
Ja sam pre 10 godina ovde gostovao kod vas sa Hašimom Tačijem i Catherine Ashton.
10 years ago, I was guest here with Hashim Tači and Catherine Ashton.
Ja sam potpisao briselski sporazum.
And I was the one who signed Brussels agreements.
I šta?
And what happened?
Pa kakav je autoritet Evropske unije? Ko je garant tog sporazuma?
What is the authority of the European Union who was a guarantee of this agreement?
I opet se nalazimo na početku.
And we come back to the beginning.
Ono što vi svi znate o nama, mi se svi znamo iz Jugoslavije.
we all know each other from former Yugoslavia.
Pa nismo mi sada neki koji treba da se upoznajemo.
And we're not people who are supposed to be introduced.
Ja da vam kažem, kakvi god da ste vi što sedite pored mene, moji ste i naši ste i najbolji ste.
And no matter what kind of a person you are here sitting next to me,
narodi iz zemlje druge kategorije u Evropi.
You are mine, and for me you are the best, because we're not peoples and nations from different categories.
Da poštujemo više sami sebe.
But I think that we all together should respect ourselves a bit more.
I ja sam spreman da mi radimo zajedno šta god možemo da uradimo. Mi bismo bili srećni da Michel ispuni ono što je rekao.
And we are ready and happy to work together, and we would be happy if Michel could fulfill what he promised.
Okay, thank you, Ivica. Miroslav, you had a question from Ivica. Is he right in being skeptical that also this time this pledge is not serious?
Well, let's be clear. What President Michel said yesterday was an official statement in an official occasion, and he spoke in his official capacity as the President of the European Council, and therefore it is a formal statement which was delivered on behalf of the European Union. At the same time, he said, let's be clear, European Union will be ready by 2013. Does not mean that it's now the responsibility of the European Union to deliver the Western Balkans by 2030. If you are ready, we are ready. That's really important. It takes two to tango. It's a big thing, and I fully agree with everything Minister Fajon said. We did not have this before. We have the momentum, and for me dealing with this region for more than 20 years, I don't remember a situation when EU was more ready for the Balkans than the Balkans were ready for the EU. We now have this momentum. The momentum never tries forever. Use it. We need to turn this momentum into a new quality, new process, and the parameters were broadly defined. Gradual, de facto integration, being in the room, not only when we speak about the region, but being in the room when we speak about European priorities. So these processes are not mechanical. These processes are political. There are better times. There are more difficult times. There are moments when the European Union has to deal with huge issues such as financial crisis or Brexit or migration. Obviously, it would be naive to expect that enlargement will be the priority. Here we are back, full focus on the enlargement, and the message for the region is don't miss this opportunity.
Miroslav, maybe just to go a little bit deeper, what does it mean, which also Minister Fajon discussed, I mean, in your opinion, what does it mean that this year Western Balkans, which means until December, needs to take this opportunity? I mean, what exactly does it mean for different countries of the region? For example, what does it mean for North Macedonia, for Albania, for Kosovo or Serbia?
Well, there was a feeling of complacency on the side of European Union. There was a feeling that the region can wait. We could hear voices saying we need to put our house in order first and then we can deal with the issues of the Western Balkans, which is profoundly wrong because it's not our issues and your issues. These are all our issues. And paradoxically, if there is one good thing out of this terrible war, Russia's aggression against Ukraine, it was that it brought a wake-up call, understanding that we have unfinished business, that we need to be serious about the region because we may lose the region. And one can say that last year was a very successful year for the enlargement because Bosnia and Herzegovina got the candidate status, North Macedonia, Albania invited to start accession negotiation, completion of the visa-free regime with Kosovo. Why there is no excitement in the region? Because this was not a result of the work of the region. This was long overdue decision on the side of the European Union. So, but we found the courage to deliver this decision. European Union found its geopolitical moment, and as I said, the moment will not last forever. So let's use the moment. That means we will not be blurring the process. We will not be moving the goalposts. There is no tolerance for that. The simple rule of the process is, if you do your part, we will do our part. And I feel we have this moment after many years.
Okay, maybe, thank you, Miroslav. I turn to Minister Konaković. Bosnia and Herzegovina. In December, there is a big possibility there is going to be, and this is not a secret, a big push for Ukraine to start negotiations. I mean, this is something that is already, being discussed inside of the European Union. There was always this feeling of dread from the part of Bosnia and Herzegovina that you are going to be left behind. This is why, also, as Minister Fajon said, we really worked closely with you and proposed that, geostrategically speaking, Bosnia and Herzegovina needs to be on the same train with Ukraine and Moldova. Now, do you think it's realistically to expect that you are going to be on this train also in December? I mean, right now, the way I see it, but really I'm not an expert on Western Balkans, you have 14 priorities, which you need to, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's not like Ivica said that we don't know what to do or who should do what. It's pretty clear. I mean, you have 14 priorities. You need to implement them. If you implement them, you move forward. Of course, they're not easy, especially for a country which is as complicated as Bosnia and Herzegovina. Is there a willingness on the part of political elites in Bosnia and Herzegovina to do something until December so that countries which believe that geostrategically it's important for this country to move forward on the enlargement process to jump on the train of Ukraine and Moldova?
Thank you. We must jump into the train. Actually, we have to do that, First of all, we were left behind for years, from European community also. But also, there is a sentence in Bosnia, we never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. We missed all opportunities we had in the past, all agreements, all April packages, Butmir's agreement, and everything, actually. That is our responsibility. Because we are aware of the situation and of the momentum, because the world has changed, not only enlargement politics and Adam's opinion regarding enlargement and actually the future of Western Balkans into European community. World has changed because of aggression on Ukraine. And Europeans now, they're afraid of Russian influence in Western Balkans territory and with arguments, and that is our advantage, actually. On the other side, I will repeat, we have to deliver something. We need to do something to prove that we want to go to European community. Today, I'm really optimistic regarding Bosnia and Herzegovina future inside of European community because we started. I'm still thinking about the introduction. You said enlargement survivors. That's really interesting. At the time when Thessaloniki summit happened, I was in the same place also, enjoying my life and playing basketball in this beautiful country. I'm new in this job, only 7 months. But I can recognize a chance for my country, So that is the reason why we created another approach to the politics in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is really easy to create some conflicts, public fights. You can hide behind Dodik wherever you want. It's easy to hide behind him, You have a lot of reasons to hide behind him. Okay, that's Dodik, you cannot do anything, and that the story stops. But we have to change the approach, and I have arguments, I have proofs that it's possible. Tomorrow, there is a session of House of People, that's the level of parliament in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They will confirm, I'm sure they will because we signed, they're going to confirm 5 laws from these 14 key priorities. That never happened in Bosnia in last decade, actually. So we proved now we are really in complicated situation. Delivering European laws at the same time, politicians from Republika Srpska, they are flying to Moscow and avoiding Putin. At the same time, there are political reality in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we have to sit together. We have to negotiate. We have to deliver because of the future of my country. All citizens from all over Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only the parts or entities, So I think it is possible. I think we have momentum now, not because of us, because of Europeans mostly, and unfortunately because of Ukraine. But we need to use this chance. We need to jump into that train, and we will do all we can.
Thank you, Minister. And I will, I'm trying to be optimistic. I know. But, you talked a lot about we need to, we have to, but will you? You know, it's three more months until December.
We delivered already, I told you, like these laws are adopted already in the Council of Minister level and the House of Representatives level, and they will be confirmed tomorrow. Before that, actually, we elected the fastest ever elected Council of Ministers in the history of Bosnia and Herzegovina, confirmed in January, only 3 months after the elections. We also adopted program of reforms on time. We solved the Europol contact point on time. Like, it looks different today. Even with the fact, actually, we have these big political issues regarding Russian influence. On the other side, we have European laws ready and confirmed. I hope tomorrow they will be confirmed. So that is not like we're gonna do. We are delivering, you know, and you have to be optimistic. And there is no success without optimism, trust me. I know that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I will go now to Minister Bujar from North Macedonia. You know, North Macedonia knows a lot about obstacles, a lot about promises which have been broken, which have not been kept. And again, you know, you did so much, more than it was asked from you, and still, you know, you are in position where you just need so little, but this so little is politically so hard that you are in a position where, you know, it's hard to expect that in the next 3 months until the end of the year something is going to move. Or is it? Do you think that it's possible to do something until the end of the year?
Well, first it's good that Alexandre Adam is with us here, because he's one of the architects of the so-called French proposal. And this proposal that brokered the deal last year is based on some principles. On the principle that Macedonian language will be in the negotiating framework without any additions, and it will be official language of the European Union once we are members of the Union. A big no to introducing historic interpretations into the roadmaps, clusters, chapters, benchmarks of the negotiating process. A big no to any identity debate along the way. But a big yes to community rights, to minority rights, regardless of their size, since this is our hallmark. North Macedonia is known for its functional multi-ethnic democracy. So yes to constitutional changes, yes to introducing the widest package of privileges to all communities, including Bulgarian community, which based on the last census was around 3,500. So this was the principle on which we based, and though sometimes when we have different interpretations between us and Sofia, I say go and call Paris and Alexandre Adam to explain, because these are the principles, and these are important. So we are in the process of constitutional changes. The process, the amendments are not controversial per se. The environment is toxic, because it has been, this moving target has accumulated layers and layers of frustrations without any deliverables to deflate this balloon of frustration. So now, even if you say a promising thing to people, they are afraid what they're hearing, because they are not used to hearing good news from the process. But we are convinced, because as I said, we willingly shifted the pivot of the top of the subject from this historic identity debate into a human right, community rights, and this is the essence of the French proposal. And I'm optimistic that since we have opened the process a few days ago, we have set the agenda, that we will do it by the end of this year. But let me just comment on the pledge of President Michel, because that statement yesterday has resonated in North Macedonia and has helped this debate that we have launched there, and I liked how Tanja coined it into a Bled Pledge 2030, at least puts your name on it, so you will have to fight with us. But I think it's important because we have been arguing, we have been asking this since it served Central European countries. I think 2004 was introduced way back before 2004 as a tentative year when the Big Bang will happen. It frames the debate, it frames the action plans, it frames the mindset, it adds an additional energy. Again with the chair. Emotion. So I think it adds an additional energy that you cannot calculate in the, on your tables, and I believe that this is the right way. This is the right way to do it. And then now, after what happened yesterday, which I think to me is historical, now we can talk easily about what North Macedonia or what we have proposed as a way to handle the frustration in both sides, and this is integration before membership. So I don't know what's my time, but I would like to elaborate this this concept that we've been trying to present, but it has a meaning now, because it would have been promoted too much before yesterday. It would have been interpreted as an alternative trajectory to membership. After today, now we can easily talk about how to creatively fill the gap in between now and 2030.
But do you think that basically what happened yesterday with this date is going to help the talks between the government and the opposition in basically move away from the political games, which we all know, and they are in all of the countries the same? Do you think that this is going to somehow make them more ready to compromise in order for North Macedonia to move forward?
I think so. If you followed the news yesterday in North Macedonia, Charles Michel's statement was all over. Immediately in the afternoon, the version of President Macron's statement dominated the political scene. And it was presented as a cold shower, mainly by the opposition, saying, you see, we told you that there's no credible process. We are doing painful compromises without a clear perspective. So therefore it's important what Alexandre Adam said today, what Minister Bon said today, that President Macron, when talking about Europe's in speed, talked about the real speed, the dynamics of membership, and not Europe in tiers, Europe in layers. And I think this is important because there is a battle of propaganda back home, and there is a shield that has been introduced, rightly so, and I absolutely don't blame people because they have gone through many painful processes, so it's difficult to present the real arguments, and I believe that this will provide some conducive atmosphere for the process.
Great, thank you. Minister, now let's turn to Donika, to Minister of Kosovo. You are basically way back when it comes to the whole enlargement process because of various reasons. We all know them. I'm not going to go into the details. You are going to get at least this is the plan, on the 1st of January, the visa liberalization, which is a first and also important step in recognizing that Kosovo's future is inside of the European Union. But of course, you know, there are some other issues, some other things that need to be done, not just on the domestic front, in order for Kosovo to move forward. How ready are you at home when it comes to do your part of the work in order to catch this train, which we have been discussing about for the last 30 minutes?
Thank you very much. It is very important to mention from the beginning that when sovereign and independent states, they decide themselves about where they belong, with whom, And we have seen it in Ukraine. It's important to know that it's not the neighborhood or the region deciding that. Why do I say this? Because we in Kosovo strongly believe that we are ready and we are prepared to go in this journey. We have applied last December for the membership. That means that we are waiting for the next step from the side of the European Union, and we are very optimistic that this will happen soon. It must happen soon, because...
You are basing your optimism on what?
On the European idea and on the internal developments of Kosovo itself. Because this should be the first measure how to judge about countries and how ready they are to fulfill. You spoke about 40 priorities, and Kosovo is prepared and ready to undertake what is important and what is necessary so that we can join the European family. But I think there are 4 questions that we need to answer when it's about the integration of the Western Balkan in the European Union. The first question is where? This is the European Union. What is the European Union? Yes, it is an economic union as well, but in first place it is a union, a political one, based on values and principles. On rule of law, open democracies, transparent political systems, in respecting human and minority rights, etc., etc. This is where. The question when, one answer was given yesterday, and I tend to take this answer very seriously, because 2030 is a goal with which we can work. We can prepare so that 2030, when the European Union is ready for that and does not change again the date, then we should be prepared as well. I understand that this is not a one-way street. The next question is who? I believe that in the European Union are belonging states that are ready to identify themselves with the values and principles that are the fundaments of the European Union. And the last question for me is the why. Why in the European Union? When we see that just as a source for getting more funds, financing and money, then I think this is that the European Union is the wrong place to go. If we are serious about wanting for our citizens a European Union as it is now, and not to go inside and try to change the European Union from inside, then we need to be clear about our motivation why we want to join the European Union. So that's why for me is very important this feeling of governments and people, the feeling of belonging to the European Union. And this will become very crucial the more we come near to the year 2030, when we need to be ready to join the European Union. So we should not underestimate one second aspect. It is political union, economy, this is the European Union, but at the same time, we have security challenges in our region. So that's why we ask our partners to think this in a in a parallel system. Mm. One side coming near to the European Union, and on the other side, making steps towards NATO for those who want and are still not member of NATO, so that security and economic development and political belonging go hand in hand.
Minister, just what does it mean? I have to ask this question because I'm interested in your answer. What does this date mean for the dialogue?
It depends not only
on Kosovo. Is this also a date when the dialogue will finally bring results?
I believe that we have good chances to achieve success in the dialogue even much earlier than that. And we are committed to work on that. The Prime Minister has yesterday from here mentioned the next spring. So let us work on that.
Miroslav, you agree?
I fully agree. We know what needs to be done. We have agreements from February and from March, and they can be implemented. Yes. There is political will and commitment within a month.
Maybe just
several months. So
Ivica, do you think next spring? But quickly.
Prvo da mi neko odgovori šta je sa prethodnim sporazumom.
Well, firstly, I would like for someone to answer me what happened with the previous agreement.
Koji sam potpisao pre 10 godina sa Catherine Ashton I Hašimom Tači.
I signed 10 years ago with Catherine Ashton
Šta se dešava s tim?
What happened with that?
Ili to ne važi?
Or that is no longer valid.
Evo tu je Lajčák, neka kaže.
Here, Lajčák is here.
Učestvovao je u svemu tome.
He participated in all of this.
Okay, Miroslav, yeah.
Yes, Article 10 of our agreement says that all past agreements must be fully implemented.
Okay, now we know that. Is next spring a viable date to actually achieve something substantial in dialogue? But quickly, please.
Taj dijalog je, kao što znate, to nije dijalog o statusu, to je dijalog o normalizaciji.
As you know, this is not a dialogue on status, but on normalization.
Naš svaki dogovor sa Prištinom je bio statusno neutralan.
And all of our agreements with Pristina was statusly neutral.
Možete vi da se smijete koliko hoćete neki u publici ovdje.
And you can
Niste vi živjeli na Marsu, nego ste živjeli u Jugoslaviji. I znate dobro da je Jugoslavija bilo 6 republika.
You did not live on Mars. You used to live in Yugoslavia, and all you well know that Yugoslavia had 6 republics.
Ne pričamo, znači, zavisi šta hoćete da kažete o dijalogu.
Dijalog o normalizaciji ili dijalog o statusu. Dialogue on normalization of the relations or dialogue on status.
Što se tiče nas, mi smo konstruktivni I hoćemo da učestvujemo.
When it comes to us, we are constructive and we want to participate.
Ali prvo zajednica srpskih opština. Prije toga ništa dalje ne može.
But Association of Serbian Municipalities.
Nešto što je potpisano pre 10 godina.
First, and then afterwards we can talk something that was signed 10 years ago.
Okay.
Well, how long can we wait more?
Understand. So maybe next spring it's it's going to be difficult to achieve. Donika, please.
But it's worth to try it. As you see, it's difficult. Because if you look for reasons why not to move, you can always find. The bad weather today could be a reason why we should not have this discussion today here. But if you want to overcome the challenges, then we are able to do that. And we are ready to do that.
Okay. No, you can, if you want to.
Maybe one last thing about the different speeds of the European Union. I know that this is not a new discussion. It comes from time to time. It is the discussion inside the European Union and now with the integration of the Western Balkans as well. I really believe that if the European Union is serious about understanding not only the chances for the Western Balkans when we enter the European Union, but at the same time, the benefits that the European Union would gain from democratic countries, from Western Balkan as being part of the European Union, then if we change a little bit, shift a little bit our mindset, both sides, then I really believe that this can become a fast and a good success story. But we need on both sides to work on that. No second-class European Union membership, full membership for democratic states who are prepared to join the European Union.
Thank you very much, Minister. Okay. Megi, finally, Albania, you know, if you look around this panel, your road towards European Union is probably the clearest. you don't have any significant problems with your neighbors. Your political situation in the country is stable. You have more or less clear reforms and priorities that you have to do. So what's stopping you? Because, you know, your prime minister, whenever he came to Bled Strategic Forum, and we always like to have him here, he said that you are like a bride who nobody wants. But now it seems that European Union wants you. So are you ready?
I feel like I need to start off by talking a bit about the underlying theme that the esteemed panelists also mentioned about time and timing, whether we're supposed to use this good timing and momentum and the time that has passed. And you've also mentioned in the theme of this panel, 20 years since it's Thessaloniki. You mentioned the promise. 30 years since Copenhagen criteria, which actually coincides with 30 years of Albania as a reborn democratic state after the collapse of communism. And now the Western Balkans in 2023 is a world away from the Western Balkans in the 1990s. It's changed immensely, Albania of course included. It's a more peaceful, a more stable, a more secure region. And of course, it's because of the transformation is precisely due to the European integration, the aspirations, and the hard work that's been put into. And of course, as Alexandre mentioned, with this narrative of the pessimistic and optimistic view, but a pessimist would for sure say that it's for too long Europe has been reluctant to think about enlargement strategically, reluctant to think about enlargement geopolitically. But the process was never quite right. It didn't really fit. It was either too technical or it was either too political with bilateral issues, coming in between. But it's certainly changed. We can see from another optimistic view. For example, in Albania, we have a population's full support when it comes to EU integration. And
but you're happy now with the process.
The process is ongoing. The process is a lot of work. No one said it was going to be easy, and of course we're very ready to have the work. But I think at the forefront of it, it should be what the Council's President mentioned, Charles Michel mentioned yesterday. At the heart of it should be the people. It should be the future. It should be the future of of our future and our children's future. So it's not just about screening and the technical aspect of it. So I mean, really, if we need to take a minute, but just 1 minute, not too long, because we've wasted enough time, to really take stock of everything that we've gone through as single countries, but also together and with the EU and the ongoing and structured dialogue that we're having, Western Balkans and the EU. I mean, there's a few things that I would like to mention on that end and things that we can work on. First of all, the process should not be open-ended anymore. It should be more clear objectives and deadlines, as was also mentioned here as well. It should be a targeted work. Exactly. We should bridge the development gap between the Western Balkans that it has even with the newest member states of the Union. And that's also part of the convergence gap that the Prime Minister mentioned in the panel yesterday as well, which is really widened. And it makes it very difficult to push through when it comes to EU integration. We hope that the EU will work with us on that, but also the enlargement back in the 20s, for instance, it gave a new boost when it came to the European economy, but as well as to the newcomers. So this is something that we're, looking forward to having now as well, and stop putting bilateral agendas before our European agenda. And of course, we always welcome messages of support and encouragement from member states and from our partners, which, of course, should underscore the importance of a merit-based process. For Albania, because you asked very specific questions as well, given that it's almost September and, the end of the year is coming soon. For Albania, we hope to have the first cluster, the cluster 1 fundamental screening in the framework of a second IGC within this year, within 2023, because the Minister Fajon also mentioned that next year, due to the EU elections, we could have a change in the situation of the EU institutions. But not just that, it's also about the very rapid change that we're seeing in the geopolitical landscape. So we really need to use this momentum, as I mentioned, in these two points for Albania, but also as for the Western Balkans, it means advancing all together in our respective processes.
Thank you, Megi. Okay, slowly, because I know you have a lot of questions and I would like to open to the audience. But before that, let me turn to Mr. Schmidt. You heard Minister Konaković and his optimism. Do you share this optimism?
Thank you. You have to be an optimist to go ahead. So I would think basically I share the optimism. Should I
that's
continue?
No, I mean, if you share the optimism. No.
I would not like to answer to every statement I heard, but let me somehow, from my point of view, summarize. Coming to Konrad Adenauer, he once said, basically, things are very simple. What are the simple things, or what is the white elephant in the room? It is not about all details which are important to be done. It is, in my understanding, and this links to Charles Michel in 2030, the decision of the population. Young population will be off this region if we're waiting more and more years. So I think this is the decisive commitment necessary. What are we doing to keep young people with their opportunities, with their knowledge, with their smart commitment in their own countries? Be aware, European Union countries, including mine, are tending to drain them, their brain and their commitment, because it's very easy to get, for example, from Kosovo, as I've read, every second day, one surgeon, one doctor, and 4 nurses, statistically from Kosovo, moving to Germany. Wonderful for Germany and its needs for a labor force, but disastrous for the region here. What is the commitment, not of European Union, but of the member states to deliver to their own people? I think this is the white elephant where I sometimes would like, with knowing about all these complicated issues and about, to talk a little bit more about this, and this could bring closer the political class to reality of the people where they are living. They want to get answers to this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt. Let me turn to the director for Western Balkans at the EIS, Marko. Summarize for us your thoughts about the panel, and you have like 3 minutes. I know it's going to be difficult, but try.
Thank you very much. I'll try to maybe start with one sentence. EU is still the place which all people look for their economic and social security and freedom, which EU values enshrine. Now, I wanted to start with that because this is in the core of all this discussion, and that's also connected to the question, why now? Why not now? Of course, it should be done now, and the speech of the President of the European Council was really indicative. But that speech had many elements, not only the date, but also the fact that all the open issues should be resolved before entering the EU. He had played with some very important ideas about qualified majority, necessary to avoid bilateral issues blocking countries to enter the EU, and really reintroducing merit-based principle which we all stand for. He also mentioned several other things, among them also the ability of the EU to absorb new members. And this is what we will take as a commitment. This is what we have already started to work on the ability. We are looking into the legislation in order to make it easier and to make it faster for the new member states to enter. But there needs to be something else. There need to be reforms, especially on the fundamentals, which we all so much like to mention. Which are these fundamentals? These are the values we are all talking about. The values from the Article 2 of the treaty. Why we want them? Because we want you to all become members of the family. share the values, what you're saying. And that's why the rule of law and the reforms are so much important. And that's why we have all these exercises called enlargement package and country reports and all these things. We have created methodology to scrutinize your work or your progress on the values which all we want to share together in Europe. I had a couple of very good other points that has been said here. But there is one more thing that I wanted to mention. This discussion also mentioned one thing. Sometimes the reforms are easier path. The open issues are much more difficult. And this is something that should be a lesson to all of us, to the member states of the EU27 and to the partners from the region. How we can work together. And here, this is the perfect thing. And I liked how you phrased it, Mr. Dačić. This is something where we can work together to overcome it, to overcome the open and regional issues that has been created by succession in the 90s and the conflict that unfortunately happened and teared us apart a little bit. But there is a courage, enough political courage in the region to overcome them, to come together. And that's why I come to the last word, and this is reconciliation, so many times mentioned. But it's really one of the most important narratives that we need to all, first of all, follow, secondly, understand, and thirdly, implement in our everyday life. We will try to do our utmost in Brussels, and I hope it will be matched or reciprocated also from the side of the Western Balkans. Thank you.
Statement of both, so share this very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we had two Keynote listeners who agree on everything, which is nice to see. We have time for, I would say, 3 questions, but they must be questions, not... Please, Mr. Radulović, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Momčilo Radulović, President of European Movement in Montenegro. I'm happy to see you again here year after year, and unfortunately most of the teams are repeating in a vicious circle. However, I hope that maybe next year we will have some moves in all directions. Regarding some of the aspects of the Mr. Charles Michel speech, yes, I would like again and again to believe this is the true, this is optimistic view. I'm just asking myself, and I'm asking you, who is going to make these decisions? You, now, this present session of the European Commission, the present President of the EU Council, the present Parliament? No, there will be somebody else. 2025, there will be completely different structure, or maybe to a certain extent different structure. So who is going to, what we can promise now, and what Mr. Michel can promise now in 2023 for 2030? How much commitment we will see again? What we will see, for example, what we will see from the Mr. Macron's side again, because when he initiated the change of the methodology for negotiations, we who are dealing with this subject on both sides, on Western Balkans and European side, the experts, we all said there is no need for the change. We lost 3 years in this change, and we know the purpose. It was a very political purpose. Now Mr. Macron, in the same day, gave completely different statement to what Mr. Charles Michel said. Yep. So who to trust and who is going to deliver this?
Thank you. Yes, Alexandre.
Thank you. No, but sorry, but I will have to repeat myself. It's not a completely different message from what Charles Michel is saying. They just talked about different things. On the one hand, you have Charles Michel saying this is the indicative date. Then you have President Macron saying, okay, then we also have to discuss about the other part. There is enlargement, there is the deepening of the EU. How do we deepen the EU with an enlarged EU? That's the question. And then he said there is perhaps the question of the different speeds. And again, this is not about having second-class members. It's about being clear for every single candidate country or future member state about their own wishes once they're in the Union, about the speed of integration. But saying that, this is extremely theoretical, to be frank. This is a very theoretical discussion. But the message as well is I mean, like Mr. Fajon said, I mean, thinking out of the box, because there is this political momentum. It really is the key message from those who are here and from the EU member states. There's a political momentum. There's a political momentum, so we have to seize it now. And on the new methodology, I'm glad that you're mentioning it because I drafted it. Well, not the new methodology, but let's say the French proposal of the methodology. And not because I'm smart, because actually I used the thinking of think tanks from the Western Balkans. Because there are a lot of inputs that can come from the region as well, and we are expecting that input for the process, but also for the reform of the Union. I mean, if Western Balkan countries are to join the Union, we want the input also of the view of the European Union for the future that you have. And so the new methodology, where I agree with you, is that, I mean, we had proposed with different elements. There was a communication by the Commission 3 months after, something like that. And it's only this year, unfortunately, that it seems to be becoming a bit more concrete with the President von der Leyen's speech in Bratislava last month. But I think that now, if we are all serious and we want to make it work, we need really to go faster in that reflection.
Thank you, Alexandre. Minister Fajon.
Just briefly, because I'm thinking quite often we are losing ourselves in so many questions, so many frustrations. We can be hours discussing what has gone wrong, what the time has been lost, what we missed as opportunities, what Charles Michel can do. We should put other question now. What are we willing to do? Are we willing to think out of the box, or we will lose another time for discussing what all went wrong? I think this is a wrong approach. Let us think different. Let us look to the future. We wasted here also a lot of time on discussing what has gone wrong. Why don't we switch our mindset and think what we will do better?
Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. My name is Gabrielle Sinigo. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon of Tanya's future. First to Alexandre Adam. Je voudrais poser la question suivante. You have probably after the elections next year a holistic reform of the EU, right? Let's say it is a reform of 180 degrees, volte-face. Do you think you still have people from Southeast Balkans geographically, not yet the West, in your boat? Or do you have only a few survivors of this enlargement and the rest has just dropped out? The second question to Mr. Dačić. Mr. Dačić, I have the following question. You seem to be very Eastern-oriented. Would you follow up on an invitation of Mr. Xi Jinping to join Shanghai Cooperation rather than the EU? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there another question? Before I... Please. It's the last one, so make it good.
I will not disappoint. Hello, my name is Romain Lequenu. I'm working for the International Republican Institute, and I would like to come back to one specific day when I attended a meeting on the Western Balkans in Budapest, in the Budapest Balkan Forum, and it was on the 24th of February, 2022. Both think tankers, politicians, everyone from the region was saying, holy shit, what are we going to do? Are we going to benefit from it, or are we going to suffer from it? And I have the feeling that 2 years later, still don't have the answer. And that's a big problem. We can be against or in favor of what Mr. Michel said yesterday. I think it's a political declaration. Would you have the possibility or the capacity or the ability to answer collectively and politically this challenge? Would you, representatives of the countries of the Western Balkans, are you able to make a political declaration to say that we will be ready as well by 2030 or not? And do you have a strategy also to see how the Western Balkans, as well as Ukraine, Moldova, potentially Georgia, would be able to collectively think about the EU enlargement, because this is not the case right now. And you cannot have competition because Ukraine strategically is much more important than the region, unfortunately. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Ivica first.
Ne znam gde se baš setiste za šangajsku organizaciju.
I'm not certain why did you remember Shanghai organization at first.
Vas pitam jednu stvar, u kom svetu vi živite?
Can I ask you a question? In
Vi
which
stvarno verujete
world
to
do
što
you
pričate?
believe in? Do you truly believe in what you're saying?
Vi stvarno verujete u te bajke da mi ćemo da pristupimo BRICS-u, šangajskoj organizaciji? Pa idite onda i slušajte te koji vam pričaju bajke.
Do you truly believe that we will join BRICS or Shanghai organization?
Srbija je u Evropi i mi želimo da budemo član Evropske unije.
Go to those who are telling you such fairy tales. Serbia is part of Europe and we want to be part of the European Union. It's a normal thing.
Ali čekajte, iako ne bismo želeli, jel vi hoćete da kažete da Velika Britanija nije normalna?
But even if we were not to wish this, would you say that Great Britain is not part of Europe?
Što je izašla iz Evropske unije?
That it is crazy because it left European Union?
Nemojte tako olako da dajete kvalifikacije.
Please don't give such
Što se
easy
tiče
assessments.
istočne orijentacije,
When
ja
it
mogu da vam
comes to
kažem jednu
Eastern
stvar.
orientation,
Svi vi možete da pričate što hoćete u Srbiji,
you can say what you want about Serbia,
a vi iz zapadnih zemalja imate promet sa Kinom, Rusijom i ostalima sa istoka 1.000.000 puta više nego Srbija.
you can say what you want about the Western Balkans countries, but you from the West, you can say what you want about Serbia, but you from the Western countries have commodities exchange 1,000,000 times higher than Serbia.
Čekajte, negde sam danas pročitao, šta sam pročitao? Ministar spoljnih poslova Velike Britanije u poseti Kini.
Somewhere I read today that foreign minister of the UK is visiting China.
Uveli ste sankcije Rusiji, a veća spoljno-trgovinska razmena sa Rusijom.
You imposed sanctions against Russia while your foreign commodities exchange with Russia has risen. It's
Austrija
higher.
nam deli lekcije za banke da ne mogu da rade, a Raiffeisen može da radi.
Austria is telling us that banks shouldn't work in Russia while Raiffeisen Bank is still
Srbija je
working there.
nezavisna i samostalna zemlja. Mislite vi šta hoćete.
Serbia is an independent state.
Mi vodimo računa o svojim nacionalnim i državnim interesima.
And you can think what you want. We are only
Osuđujemo
looking at our
napad.
own national interests.
Osuđujemo napad na Ukrajinu, naravno.
We of course condemn the attack against
Kršenje
Ukraine
teritorijalnog integriteta.
and the breach of territorial integrity.
Kao što očekujemo da i vi osudite kršenje našeg teritorijalnog integriteta.
But we also expect for you to condemn the breach of our territorial integrity.
I kao kada vi govorite o zajedničkoj spoljnoj politici, evo tu je Marko.
And when you speak about joint foreign policy, here we have Marko.
A kada druge zemlje ne postupe skladno zajedničkoj spoljnoj politici Evropske unije, onda je to normalno.
But when other countries don't do in accordance with the joint foreign policy of the EU, then it's a normal thing.
Kad Priština otvori ambasadu u Jerusalimu, onda je to normalno, je tako?
When Pristina opens the embassy in Jerusalem, it's a normal thing.
Pa to ne kažete.
You never
Kad se vijore zastave Velike Albanije u Tetovu, to je normalno. Vaš EAS ne daje saopštenja.
When you see risen flags of Great Albania in Tetovo, it's a normal thing, right? No one gives explanations.
Ja poštujem ali meni nije lako da se razumemo. Od 6 predstavnika Zapadnog Balkana, 4 su Albanci.
I respect everyone here, but out of the 6 representatives from the Western Balkans, 4 of them are Albanians.
Tirana,
Pristina,
gospodin Osmani
Mr. Osmani
iz Severne Makedonije,
from Northern Macedonia,
i Dritana Bazović iz Podgore.
And Dritana Bazović from Podgorica, from Montenegro.
A vi pričate nešto o uticaju Srbije na Balkanu.
And you are speaking about the influence of Serbia in the Balkans.
Ivica, but the question
Izvinjavam
was...
se, i Tanja što je rekla, mi treba da uradimo nešto. Tako je. Samo nam kažete šta treba to tačno da uradimo.
we should do something, but you should tell us exactly what should we do.
Well, I hope Tanja knows what to do.
Izvini, molim te, moram to da kažem.
I have to apologize.
Jer ja sam 20 godina u priču o evropskim integracijama.
I have been in the talks about the European integrations for the past 20 years.
100 puta sam slušao to.
And I have heard this hundreds of times.
Srušite Miloševića, okay.
You brought down Milošević, okay.
Srušite Milošević. Šta je bilo posle toga?
And what happened next?
Uhapsite Miloševića.
You arrested Milošević.
Uhapsite Milošević. Uhapsite Karadžića.
We arrested Milošević. You should arrest Karadžić.
Uhapsite Mladića.
We arrested Mladić.
Kosovo i Evropska unija, 2 koloseka, to ste vi pričali iz Brisela.
Kosovo is one road, the EU is another. There are two parallel things and
finish the sentence.
Don't go together.
A šta treba da uradimo? Samo to.
What should we do? Please tell us.
Vi mislite da je dovoljno to što ste napisali o kriterijumima za poglavlja? Pa nemoj da ste naivni.
Do you think it's enough to do what you wrote in the criteria?
Pa Albanija ima 100% pridruživanja, pa ne ide nešto najbolje.
Albania is 100% in accordance in accordance with the joint foreign and security policy, yet no
Serbia treba da prizna Kosovo da bi ušla u Evropsku uniju.
Now someone will say Serbia should recognize Kosovo in order to become part of the EU.
We need to conclude. I think we understood. I mean, the question was, is Serbia Eastern-orientated or not? So, as I understand from your answer, it's not, and you would like to be members of the European Union.
Apsolutno.
Alexandre.
Mi smo uopšte više opredeljeni istočno od Slovenije.
We are not more east
Jer ovdje je Putin bio da otvara spomenike kod vas.
Because Putin was here opening monuments.
Tako bilo.
Wasn't he?
Alexandre.
Da se sad stidite toga.
Or are you now ashamed of this?
Alexandre, you also had some question or not? No, let's drop it. Let me conclude. Let me conclude this interesting panel, which I think showed one thing. There is still a lack of trust on the part of Western Balkan countries, and probably also on the part of European Union, that the reforms, that the pledges which are being made are serious. I think this conversation also showed, and I think it's a step forward, that all of the countries, even Ivica said that, are prepared to work to actually achieve this goal of 2030. And I think, looking back for the discussions that we had in the past at the Bled Strategic Forum, I mean, this one is also going to be on YouTube, so you can watch it in 2030 when you are going to join European Union. I think what we can see is just a little bit more optimism than we had in the past. We still have problems, we still have open issues, we still have all the things that also Marko mentioned, but there is this tiny little light, there is this tiny little ray of optimism which I'm going to take with me. Despite everything what was said here, or wasn't said, I think this little ray of light maybe is going to bring us all closer to what we presumably all want. And this is that Western Balkans finally in 2030 becomes part of strong European Union. I would like to thank all the panelists. Before we let you go, I would just like to invite our minister, Ms. Fajon, to properly close this year's forum. Please, Tanja. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Also, in my name for the Last panel, but a very important one, as every year also very much visited one. And I would speak really out of my heart, will not take much time. As a host of these 2 days, 18th edition of traditional Bled Strategic Forum, I have to say it was a great success. And I will finish on an optimistic note. Today, listening to Slovenian people, the word solidarity is really in our heart, deeper than ever. And listening to all our debates and panels in the last 2 days, talking to you, I very much enjoyed, because I felt that there is a great optimism and solidarity that we all are willing to share. And this is the note I want to take with us. We spoke about solidarity for global security. And I wish to say solidarity is either in our hearts or there is no humanity. And if we think that way, that with solidarity, working together, trusting each other, listening to each other, looking around the globe what is happening, extreme weather conditions, climate change, energy insecurity, food insecurity, poverty, inequalities, cyber threats, what else is more needed than solidarity? And in that context, this Bled Strategic Forum was a success. We addressed the most heart of the problem or the challenge or the topic that is there, and this is solidarity. We are living in a very complex world. We need allies, we need friends, we need partnerships, and we need optimism. As politicians, as people that are active in our societies, without optimism, will not deliver solutions. And without optimism, will not convince our citizens that we really wish them best. And our objectives, I believe, are the same. We want to do best for our people, for dignity in their lives, for safety in their lives, and safety of our societies. I'm very proud of our ministry, of everyone that worked on this project. I'm very proud of having you all here and of sharing your ideas. You are all inspiration to all of us. And I'm looking forward to next September that we meet again here and we'll work hard that we will deliver on many concrete ideas that were shared and also take some criticism with us, because with that we can better understand where we stand today and where we want to go. So thank you a lot.